Anyway, just for a little background, my name is Denny Johnson, K5DCC, and the DCC is my vanity call that stands for Digicom Cafe, which is something I came up with about 8 years ago. It's basically my paradigm for radio communications. When I think of the responses I get from people when I tell them I'm a ham radio operator, you know the expression, eyes roll back in the head like, oh, yeah, okay, whatever. They can't relate to that very well, but we all can relate to a cafe or a restaurant or a buffet line especially. So for me, ham radio is like going through the buffet line. You've got all the selection of stuff to choose from, and you pick what you want, put it on your plate, and you leave the rest. You don't go through the line and say, why aren't you eating that? You don't like sushi? You know, you don't tell people what to eat any more than we in ham radio tell people, this is what you should do in ham radio. There's so much to choose from. And I've been a ham for over 50 years. I got my license way back in 1968 as a junior in high school in Minneapolis area in Fridley. And my first experience with radio was a homebrew 5-watt breadboard transmitter with a toilet paper roll, wire wrapped around in a crystal. And my radio was an old Hallicrafters SX24, looked like World War II model even back then, and a 40-meter dipole that I built and got to put on my roof thanks to my dad being patient with me. And I had a ball. I really got into CW. Did that for a year until I could upgrade to my general, and of course code speed had to be 13 words a minute. So I've enjoyed all of the aspects, almost all of the aspects of ham radio since. And I hate to think of what I've spent in radio gear, right dear? It's like a black hole. Buy, sell, trade, you know, try this, try that. And I've built a lot of kits, and one of the things I've really enjoyed is building antennas and experimenting. That's part of the fun of this hobby, experimentation and fun. And a couple years ago, I was introduced to John Portune. In fact, I'm part of one of his weekly meetings every Monday at 10. We get on Zoom, and there's a dozen of us from around the world, mostly around the US. And we just sit and chat for an hour and a half. It used to be when I first got into this that John would have these brainstorm ideas, and he used a software tool called EasyNet. Anybody here use EasyNet? You know what it is? It's way over my head. I like to do things simply. But anyway, he would share with us some of his ideas and experimentation, and a lot of it had to do with aluminum foil tape because it's so readily available, it's lightweight, it's cheap, and you can do so much with it, especially if you're in an HOA situation. How many here are in an HOA where you can't have any outside antennas, right? Not that they can see, right. And so that was John's situation too, and he had a real desire to help people in those situations, to be able to have some kind of a hidden antenna, something that would be a little deceiving. You might mistake it for a mailbox or a birdhouse or whatever. But he would come up with these ideas that I'd never heard of before, and I'd jump on it, and I'd make it. And I'd come back the next Monday and report, hey, I built this antenna you were talking about, and it works great. And so today, I just want to share 2 of these things with you that I have really fallen in love with because of readily available parts, doesn't cost anything, it's almost free, and they really work well. So the first one, and I'm going to save this is one of my favorites too. The first one is a slot antenna. Have you ever heard of a slot antenna? Have you ever seen a slot antenna? Have you done it with aluminum foil tape? No. Well, one of my first ones, after having him do his little presentation on it, and by the way, I've interviewed John Portune twice, video. I have 2 YouTube videos. One is on the slot, and one is on the mag loop antenna. And he did his PowerPoint presentation for my video YouTube thing. So if you want to watch these things on YouTube, just do a search for Digicom Cafe, DIGICOMMCAFE, and I've got all kinds of video podcasts, sometimes live things that I'm doing. But I also have an audio podcast I call Radio on the Rocks. I call them cafe casts because I'm sticking with this cafe theme. And I have over 350 episodes of interviews with hams from around the world, a lot of big name people that you would know too. And just have them tell their story about how they got into radio. And I really believe that every one of us has a story to tell. A lot of it's kind of familiar. Oh, I started out with CB or whatever. but that led me into this and that, and now you're really involved in the hobby. And what I'm trying to do is simply build interest in radio communications. I used to say ham radio communications, but it's expanded beyond that now. Any radio communications, license-free or not. I think there's a lot of ways we can get people into our great hobby where they don't have to worry about taking the test. They can use GMRS, FRS, Mesh-tastic as a way of getting them interested in how radios work, and then slowly introduce them to our great hobby. So anyway, I meet with John Portune fairly regularly, and we get to hear all kinds of his ideas, and it's really fun to build these things. And the first thing was the slot antenna. And the first thing I did was go out and get some tape, and my shack has a south-facing window. I'm down in Arkansas, and that's facing like Boat Mountain, Gaither Mountain. We've got a couple of repeaters down there. One is for ham radio, it's UHF, and of course GMRS is UHF. So my first project with slot antennas was to build a slot antenna for UHF, and I put it on my window. I just laid out 2 rows of tape. If you don't know the formulas, don't worry about it. I'm going to try not to be technical. How many of you use AI? Do you talk to your phones? What is the measurement in inches of a half wave for 460 megahertz or whatever? Your AI will tell you exactly what to do. So anyway, you get your dimension. It's roughly 12.5 inches. And the gap between there is not that critical. You can make it real short, or this is about a half inch or so, maybe 3/4 of an inch. But this is roughly 12.5 inches wide. That's a half wave for UHF. So how do you tune this thing? Well, my favorite tool, and many of you probably have one, is a VNA. You know what a VNA is? It's a little tiny computer thing. I know you've got one, Alan. They only cost about 50, 60 bucks on Amazon. But it's a wonderful tool where you can actually see a visual of a band span. So what I like to do when I create these things is I create a pretty wide band spread, like say for 400 to 500 or something, or if I'm doing, HF, I would make it even broader. And then when you connect your connecting points to it, your ground and your hot point, and you look at your scale, you're going to see the wave. You're going to see, okay, where's the lowest SWR? It's right here. That's that frequency. And just like tuning a dipole, how do you make the frequency lower? You make it longer. How do you make it higher? You shorten it. And so you tune it to your desired frequency. So I wanted to have this work for both UHF ham radio and GMRS. For some reason, it's really broad-banded. It's pretty amazing. So this works for both. And I took it off the window and decided to put it on a piece of plastic. Now, one of my favorite things that I like to do, my wife and I like to do regularly, is go down to discount bins in Harrison, Arkansas. And we get the best deals. You go there too? Jake goes there, he knows what we're talking about, and there's a ton of junk there. But I always pick up all these great deals and stuff. So this was kind of a frame with a backlit thing, LED backlit thing, and it wasn't working. I think I paid $1 for it, but it's plexiglass. I thought that'd be a great platform to put my slot antenna on, and then I can just take and stick this in the window. So this is basically my first antenna. Of course, I got my call sign, and yes, Jim, it's K5, not K4. So and basically, I'm going to make it real simple. Using a VNA, you just throw out some size, and you start measuring. Okay, this is too high, this is too low. What do I need to do to change it? So you take a piece of tape and you just slide it over this capacitive coupling, and you watch your dip. Get it to where it's the lowest and your frequency that you're looking for, and then tape it there. That sets your width. This is the frequency is dependent on the width. How do you tune it though? This is a shunt fed, they call it, system. So you take 2 points. What I did initially was I had 2 pennies, and I soldered the pennies to both leads on my coax. And then you just slide it across here, and you watch your SWR on that frequency. And you move it until the SWR is at the lowest, and that's where you nail it down. Now what I'm doing now is I just use some screws here. I've got it connected on the back. So you've got positive and your negative, shunt fed on the slot. This thing gets out like gangbusters. And the unique thing about it is these are 90-degree polarity. So it's a horizontal antenna, but it radiates vertically. So if you're on UHF or VHF, of course you want vertical, right? Just like your rubber duck on your radio. Don't let this deceive you. You don't want to turn it like this because then it makes it just the opposite. If you're trying to, yeah, you could do that too. Exactly, exactly. Yeah.
What kind of gain? Does it have any gain over a dipole?
This is pretty much equal with like a J-pole. Yep. And I tell you, I mean, we're 25 miles from the repeater. And like I said, the one in my window, I was having no problems on GMRS or UHF on our repeater. I could hit it solidly every time.
You just stick the tape to the window?
Yeah. That was a job getting it off when I was wanting to put it on this, but I have a very patient wife. She lets me experiment with all this stuff, although it's in my shack, so I guess I can do what I want. But this is a genius little antenna that anybody could build. And I mean, if you have any other kind of antenna analyzer, you could always hook that up to it too. But I like the VNA because you can do a whole band spread. Yeah.
You got a check on patterns about that?
Have what?
Patterns, radiator patterns?
Well, if you want to watch on the YouTube channel, like they were saying, go look for John Portune or just go to Digicom Cafe. He does a whole presentation with it, and he shows all the things. The other thing about the VNA when you're doing a wide band spread is you're not going to get just one dip. If it's a wide band spread, you're going to get multiples. And of course, isn't that what you do with an end-fed half wave? It's getting multiples of, like you start with 80 meters, 3.5, what's twice of that? It's 7, now you're in 40 meters. Twice of that, now you're in 20 meters. So you get those dips. So you can actually use this probably on another frequency if you just tune it for that particular frequency. But really, this is really broadbanded. This works really good for UHF, for GMRS and ham radio. Yeah.
How wide is the bandwidth at 2 to 1?
I mean, by SWR is like 1.2 to 1.
From 2 to 1 to 2 to 1, how?
440 to 470. I mean, it's really low, and it just works so well. If you've got a radio now, if you got one of these connectors that'll take a BNC, you want to try it out? Anybody got a radio ready to just connect to your radio? It's sort of directional. I mean, you could turn it like this, but the next thing I'm going to show you will kind of take care of that. You want to try it? Oh, you guys want to try it? I'll keep going so we don't take too long here. But if you want, okay, we'll be glad to do that. Yeah, you could. If you had it high enough, you bet. So the other question is, does it have to be on the same plane? And the answer is no. That's one of the things John Portune says, is it doesn't have to be on a flat plane. So coming out of the house one morning, my wife points out this 5-gallon bucket outside the door. She says, you need to throw that away. I said, really? I think I can make an antenna out of that. This is the top of a 5-gallon pail. Notice where the end of it, beginning and end of it is. I had no idea what this was going to do. I thought this might be close to 2 meters, so I just ran a couple of pieces of tape around the thing, put a piece of tape across here, which is the beginning and the end of this slot, and put it on my VNA. This works great for UHF. I was trying to do it for 2 meters, but 2 meters is actually more like 36, 37 inches. This is only 32 in circumference. And the SWR was a little bit too high, I thought. So then I started playing around with some other things, just experimenting. You'll notice on the inside of this, you see a little piece of tape? What I did was I kept my VNA on it, and I just handheld a piece of this tape, and I started sliding it, just like you think of shunt feeding. I thought, well, let me see what happens if I just move this tape around here. Again, you've got capacitive reactance, and all of a sudden I saw that SWR go down. And it was really low, like almost 1.1 on UHF. So I glued a couple of magnets on here. I can throw this on top of my car. It's rock solid, and it really gets out great for UHF hitting the repeaters and stuff. And it's really quite wind resistant. So the same thing here, as I shunt fed it here, I just moved my points across until I got the lowest SWR, nailed it down, put my bolts on, and now I have this is my slot bucket antenna.
The one that was on the flat one, both ends of the slot were shorted together. Is this one?
Yeah, this is just one piece of tape going across, right across there. So this is essentially like the beginning, and that's the end.
Oh, okay.
So imagine that stretched out.
Yeah, okay.
It's longer because I was trying to do it for 2 meters. And it does work on 2 meters too. Well, yeah, it's like where it starts. This is where it starts. The slot goes around and ends over on this side. So if you were to stretch this out, it'd be 32 inches wide. But you don't have to have it on a flat plane. That's one of the things John Portune was saying. You can do so many things with these things, which gets my creative mind going. I have a 3D printer. So I 3D printed this for UHF. It's enough to get a UHF dimension on there. Plus you get the point, so that kind of splits the wind if you put it on top of your car. So, I mean, there's so many things you can do with it. So John Portune has got another really interesting thing that he has for his presentation. You'll see it if you go visit. He's taken a piece of aluminum foil and he made a engineer's hat out of it for 2 meters. And the slot goes up, over, down, over, up, down, around his head, around this little tube of the hat, which made me think, I go to discount bins and I see this little piece of plastic box. What in the world is that? I bet I could make an antenna out of this. So this is a 2 meter slot antenna. It starts here, it goes around here, goes up the side, around here, and it's tuned for 145 megahertz, 146. And it works like gangbusters. So I put some magnets on the bottom, stick it on top of the car, solid as a rock, and that makes a great 2 meter antenna. Now you know how tall 2 meter antennas can be, mobile rigs. You're knocking them off going to McDonald's, going through the drive-thrus, your garage, you gotta take it down before you can get through underneath your garage door. This might be low enough where you could do it without having to worry about it. Or you can just sit it in a window in your house. And you feel free to try these. When we're done, you can feel free to come up and experiment with your radios if you like.
Plus you can put a light in the middle and give people a ride.
You could. I mean, I'm crazy enough where I bought these LED strips thinking, if I hook this up to my radio, will it light up when I talk? No, it won't. Yeah, right. I don't think you'd want to do that flat one on your car unless you do it into the wind sideways like that. But anyway, Alan knows how well I've gotten into the repeater using my slots. No problem at all.
And you meet people when they try to stop you and tell you you've got something left.
Yeah, exactly. I had one item I got at discount bins was a couple of plastic. I had a hole in the middle with some tubes you put in, and I just thought, I bet I can make a slot out of that. So I squeezed them together where they had a little gap around it, and I took some aluminum foil tape on the top one, on the bottom one, just like I did with that bucket. Then I covered with red tape. And I put that on top of my car. You'd think I was some kind of a law enforcement guy. Look at that, what is that? And it worked fantastic too. Cost me literally nothing except for the coax. So that was my first turn on into aluminum foil stuff. And then he did his presentation on mag loops. I've never used a mag loop. How many of you here have a mag loop? Ever played with them? Did it work well for you?
Yeah, you don't want to go chase it, or you want to spark on a frequency. You have to tune it all the time.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I learned from John Portune is that most of those mag loops you buy, even from MFJ, they say it covers all the bands. They don't. They don't. And there's a few key things that he learned in his experimenting with it that are very critical. First of all, it doesn't have to be a loop. The square is actually a more ideal shape. And as you know, you got to have some kind of scaffolding or something to hold it up, you know. And sometimes it's just a loop, you know, they got a big pole and it kind of sags, you got coax. It's kind of a mess, and they're very expensive. This is just a 1.5 inch PVC pipe covered in aluminum foil tape. It's a little bit of work, but it's doable. And on these corner pieces, you cut them in half and you put the aluminum foil tape on the inside. So that completes the circuit. And you use screws to hold it together. And then at the top, there's a gap. See the gap there? That is the tuning gap. This is capacitive tuning. This is my tuner. He discovered that if you have a tube going through that with aluminum foil on it, and as you pass that through the tube underneath that gap, it creates a capacitive reactant that changes. So as you adjust this, the frequency tunes to whatever frequency you want. So all I did was, I'll just mark it on here so I can easily see, this is my 10 meter section, which I really built this for. And the other interesting thing is, for experimentation, just do whatever you want to do. I wanted it small because I could easily throw it in the car. I did a big one to start with. It was like 4 feet wide. I couldn't get it in our hatchback. I thought that's too much, and I don't really want to use it for 40 meters. I wanted it for something lower, like maybe 20, 15, 10. And I thought, why don't I just make another one, make it smaller for like 10 meters? So 2 foot wide, piece of cake to put together. Everything like this has its own natural resonant frequency. Guess what this one is? If you know anything about dimensions and bands, and this is almost a 6 meter naturally. It's around 50 megahertz. So by putting this in here and adjusting, I've got a bigger one, it's a 3 foot. I've got it marked, okay, 10 meters, 12 meters, all the way up to 17 meters. I can't quite hit 20 with that one. I really need a 4 foot one to do that. And also the diameter is critical on these things to make them efficient. Efficiency is another big thing you need to consider with antennas. Anything will radiate. If it's metal and you can put power to it, anything will radiate. It might not be very efficient. We have a friend in our club, his name is Sean. He's quite a guy. He was trying to feed a tomato cage one day. He's got this big tuner, he can tune it up to anything, barbed wire fence going around his patch or whatever. Anyway, he tuned it up to a tomato cage. And he goes out and whispers to see if anybody hears him. He actually got some results. Not efficient, but it gets out there. So keep that in mind. Everything will radiate, but what makes it more efficient? John Portune says it's the diameter of your radiating elements. You need bigger diameter, not a wire, that's not enough. Efficiency comes with the bigger radiating element. And this is basically just skin effect. It has nothing to do with the thickness of it. It's the skin effect of the aluminum foil. So this whole thing is radiating. That makes it more broadbanded and gives you more efficiency. Actually, I just read long strips. It will. Yeah, in fact, these are 2 strips overlapping each other, maybe 3. I don't know, the bigger one is 3. But you just draw out a strip. You could. It's a little more work. Yeah. In fact, no, these are split the long way. So you've got 2 halves. In the inside, you put some aluminum foil tape on the inside. So when they're screwed over the other one, that connection is being completed. So this is a complete thing. And by the way, this is not the one that you're powering with your radio. You know how these work, right? This is the actual radiating part here. This is, in fact, John's unique idea. Instead of having a separate deal completely, he's sharing some of the actual outside as part of this inner loop. This is what you're radiating. Yeah, this is called inductive coupling. Have you ever got an AM radio? You open it up and you see the little iron ferrite coil with the wire wrapped around it? That's the receiver. It doesn't receive very well. It's very directional. So if you get these other things you can buy for like 30 bucks, big round things with a capacitor tuning on it, all you have to do is bring it near it. The signal being received by a larger antenna now is powering the smaller antenna inside the radio. I experienced this one day. I got one of these SDR radios. It doesn't have an antenna, except when you plug in the back. There's no coil one. But I went out to my vertical, 20-meter vertical, and as I got closer to it, all of a sudden it was receiving 20 meters really good. It wasn't touching, it wasn't connected, it was just getting close to it. That's called inductive coupling. So this is the radiating element, and why you do that, the way it's shaped is you can adjust this. This is one of the ways you adjust your SWR. So go back to the beginning, just like with a slot. The dimension of the slot is your main frequency. You get it matched better by adjusting where you shunt feed it. This is your radiating element. It has a natural resonant frequency. You adjust that by changing your capacitance to get it to the lowest point, hopefully the frequency you're looking for. But how do you continue to get the SWR down? That's controlled by this. There's interactivity going on here because of the inductive coupling. And as you adjust this, move it, you just watch that and your nano VNA goes down to your minimum level, and there you lock in on it. This has an SWR of 1.1, 1.2 to 1. It's very efficient. I've made some amazing contacts on 10 meters. No radials, just get it at least this distance off the ground, and it gets out like gangbusters.
That's the next way. How far off the ground does that need
this distance,
Not very far.
not very far. So like I said, I've just got this thing here. This is a thing I got at Discount Bins. It was for a telescope, I think. And I built this thing as a way of reading the actual RF coming out of it. I came up with this little gizmo to mount it and hold it in here. Just get creative, doing whatever you want to do. Whatever you got in your garage, just make it work. And I use some Velcro strips on this thing so it keeps it from blowing in the wind. So once you get it decided where you want it to work, you just mark it. I kind of use this as my edge. Put the green tape as a real quick guide. And I can hook my VNA to it, or I can hook my radio to it. I've got a FD891, and I'll just watch my SWR. Or you can just listen. You can hear increase in volume, the noise in the background, till you get it where you want, and check your SWR, and away you go.
So that like replaces your air normal on the
Yep.
mag with the air.
Yep, your capacitor. Yeah, this essentially this is the same thing. You know how capacitors look, half circles. They kind of interlace with each other. That changes the capacitance. Well, that's kind of what the one inside. It's got the aluminum foil on it. It's like one part of a capacitor. And as you're moving it across that, you're getting more or less capacitance.
So that's not hooked to anything.
Nope. Nope, nothing. So this is an LC circuit. If you remember when you took your test, yeah. The feed line's back here. And so how you set this up, let me turn this around here. The connector, the hot connector of your, coming from your radio, is going to this. This is isolated with some nylon nuts and bolts in here. So this is not touching the antenna here. It touches it here. So once you get the right frequency, you can take this and adjust it. That's like increasing the size of your main loop. You just move that, get your lowest dip, and that's where you lock it in. And you can always tweak it a little bit with this. I just have some little wing nuts here, and I can adjust that until I get it to the lowest point, and boom, you're ready to go. It's not hard. You don't have to know a lot of theory and all the formulas.
Your center conductor, I can almost see that. That's connected to that. It's connected to the.
This is the center.
Ground, like the shielded radio going.
This is touching, this is actually using this part of the antenna as part of the loop. Most people don't think of that. I don't know why John comes up with these ideas, but he said, you don't need that. You can just use part of the loop you already got as part of this loop.
Oh, I see.
But this is isolated from it. So you're not, it's just like this. You've got a gap at the top. This has got a gap here. It's not touching. It's just one side of it that completes this loop. As this radiates, the inductive coupling starts transferring that energy to this larger one, which is tuned to the frequency you want to transmit and receive on.
The shield is actually connected to the loop too, right?
Yep. Yep.
I'm looking at what?
Oh my goodness.
6 foot square,
16,
16?
even bigger maybe. I don't know. It's and they recommend 4-inch diameter pipe. Yeah.
How much power can you run?
100 watts. He says you can run more than that. I'm not so sure about that. I did 100 watts to my larger one, and right there at the gap, this is where most of the energy voltage applies. It melted my PVC pipe to the point where I couldn't get my thing to it. So I keep it down. I run it about 50 watts usually, but man, I've made some fantastic contacts with it at 10 meters.
Yeah, a couple years ago, you had that at the field day, you talked to field day,
Yep.
and people had like, what, 5 or 10 more?
I think I just did the one. We were interfering with each other, remember?
I think you were in 10 watts, and you talked to 10 watts?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Just moved that a little.
No. And these radiate so efficiently. I mean, it's just, I'm sold on these. The convenience, the size.
I'm building his off-center fed flagpole vertical right now,
Yeah.
and it uses the foil for part of the.
Yep. And he's got the ones that like barber pole. You can make a slot like that, have it wrap around in a spiral, put it out as your mailbox post and a bird feeder on top. Nobody will
The
know.
one I like is the one that goes on top of the bench stack of your house.
Yeah, exactly.
Painted black so nobody can
Yep.
tell it's there.
Yep. Now here's an idea I've got. I've not done it, but I bet it would work. If you're in an HOA and you can't have any antenna visible, why don't you put a slot in your gutter? Right in the side of your gutter. Shunt feed it. Nobody will even see it, but it radiates vertically, of course.
Work if you had a vinyl gutter.
Pardon?
That would work if you had a vinyl gutter.
Well, you could use the tape if you wanted. I'm just talking about a metal gutter. just cut yourself a slot in it, the right dimension.
I wonder if you could put something like that, say, 11 or 20 meters or something, and put it,
You might be able to.
put it under the,
Yeah,
the sheep was
yeah. That's the fun thing about this. Whatever crazy ideas you've got, just play with it, experiment. It may not work. I've built a lot of different antennas. I was big into satellites for a while, and I did one of those spiral babies, you know, it didn't work. I put quite a bit of time into that, and I was kind of disappointed with it, but you never know until you try. And it doesn't cost a whole lot to try. I've got some other great antenna ideas that I'm going to be sharing with you in the future. Next month, I've got another one that is really cheap, and it works really, really well for a dual band antenna. Just go in your closet, grab a couple hangers, and I can show you what you can do with it. Yeah, and use Whisper if you want to do some testing, comparing. Take a normal antenna you might got that you paid $150 for or something, and do a Whisper thing and see what kind of signal reports you get back. Then switch it over to one of your homebrew ones and see what the results are. It could be better, it could be worse, you never know, but that's how you can compare. Or you could listen, using SDR radio, you could monitor where somebody might be hearing your signal and listen for yourself and compare. A lot of cool things you can do that way. But don't be afraid to experiment. You don't have to know all the ins and outs. It doesn't have to be so specific. There's a lot of leeway in these things, and you'll be surprised with the results you get. And then you'll feel really proud about it. You'll really understand it. Yeah, Alvin.
Talk about coupling.
Yeah.
I worked up in Kansas City. Stayed in a motel. I would get on the repeater, click. The way I would do it, go around the south side of the motel, here's a light pole. The way I figured it was coupling that light pole
Yeah.
and transmitting 100 miles.
Yeah. It's radiating, it's picking up signals, and it's got its own built-in frequency that it's resonating at. So if you, but exactly. Yep. Now, John, you've got an antenna in your car. Some people do this where you've got you're not going through the roof, you're not going through the window. It's coupling. It's on the inside of the glass and your antenna's on the outside, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's capacitive coupling.
Right.
So it's not as efficient, and I think you struggle with some of your connections sometimes, but it does work. You know, this coupling stuff it's amazing. It really is.
Okay, so you said, I had to laugh, 4-inch PVC for an 80-meter dipole, 60-foot square, so 8.
It's 4.
8 by 8 by 8.
Oh, 8 by 8. Yeah, 8 by 8 by 8 by 8. Yeah, and it's 4-inch.
That's why I said 4 inch.
That's heavy.
That's a lot of tape.
Yeah, that's a lot of tape. Yeah, I wouldn't advise it.
Just because, okay, what about 40 meters? Just roughly.
You could do that with a 4 by 4 by 4.
40 meters would be doable. He also, but he's got me going now. I've always wanted to try 160 meters. The dipole would be like bigger than my property.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh God, what would that be, like 8-inch sewer pipe?
Yeah.
But then if you start wrapping that aluminum tape, that's gonna be $600 or $800.
Well, what you could do, you've seen some of this venting pipe that's kind of compressed and you can expand it. You could get that and have some kind of a wood frame and just, yeah, whatever you want. I mean, if it's metal, it radiates, whatever you, yeah. I like the way you guys are thinking. You're all of a sudden the wheels are turning. You're seeing all these possibilities now, and you're thinking, well. Now there's one of the guys that's part of our Portune group. He's up in Canada. I don't know if you've heard of him yet, but he uses Faraday tape. Have you heard of him? He's up in Western Canada.
What's his?
I can't remember his call. Anyway, he's
The guy that up in Canada who used that umbrella antenna. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And he used the tape
yeah.
inside the umbrella.
He was part of our group a year or so ago, and he got so excited about this. He started thinking creatively, and he thought, I bet you I could use Faraday. Yeah. And he's using these roll-up with Faraday tape. It's very flexible, you know. He sews it into this cloth material, and you can hang it from a branch in a tree. And it's like a J-pole that's rollable. And he's selling them like crazy. So I bought some Faraday tape, half-inch wide and quarter-inch wide, and experimenting with it. I don't think it is quite as good as just using aluminum foil tape, or copper foil tape works well too.
He's talking about the 40 meter thing we use. How far off the ground is that out there?
Again, it's the dimension of this. It has to be this much above the ground. That's all.
That would have to be probably 40 because 8 meters have to be
Be pretty high. It's not going to handle wind very well. I like small.
So I'm thinking the 160 meter thing, I was thinking it's gonna have to be, was it hours?
Well, if you do it, please document it. It'll make a hot YouTube channel of it.
Something we do need, there's several of us around that have VNAs, be a VNA class.
We can do that. I mean, VNAs are powerful. There's a lot more that it'll do than I've ever looked into. I use it for SWR, and that's it. I think, Alan, you've gotten into it a little bit deeper, haven't you? Yeah. Yeah, he gets bigger screen, and I mean, you can use it for finding breaks in your coax and all kinds of stuff, but I would highly advise you, get a nano VNA. You will love it. Wait. Yeah, there you go. Wouldn't that be something? You could have a nice slot antenna on a club billboard. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So anyway, any other questions? I don't want to take too much of your time here. Well, if you turn this, it is somewhat directional. Imagine there's like a big donut here on all sides. Now here's something I've tried. In fact, I made a small 6-meter one with just basically the shape like this, and I just put wire around it. And I had a divider in here, so I could have it this way or this way. And some people do that for different radiation patterns.
Okay, so how far off the ground is that?
Same thing. The ground has really very little effect on it. I mean, you don't want to lay it on the ground. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. You're interesting. But like I say, I go to places like discount bins and I get this stuff for next to nothing. I mean, this thing here, this tripod, I got a whole bunch of tripods I pick up for $1 or $2 and just save them for events like this, different things. But I love this design. It's so cheap.
Oh, I've had a question.
Yeah.
What about the aluminum vent?
Yeah. Yeah, you bet. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. You could take that and you could expand it out, give it some kind of a frame to hold it on. But once you connect it, you just leave the gap at the top. You'll have to come up with some different kind of capacitive thing probably. And you could actually get a capacitor and just connect to it and just actually tune it that way. But it really helps you understand how antennas work. It's such a fun educational experience. I can just see you all going home now. What's in my garage? What can I use? I got to stop at the hardware store and get me some tape.
Those of you that don't remember,
Huh?
this guy writes 10 articles in the QST all the time.
He's got like 20 some. Yeah, he's brilliant. He's got a physics background. And your phone's a slot antenna built into that. Now, John, he was talking about, we worked for WABC out of Los Angeles. He was more in the photography and the camera end, but he understands that TV antennas are slots. And as you know, if you got a beam for receiving TV, it's horizontal, right? So on a TV transmitter, those are vertical to end up with a horizontal signal that you pick up with your beam. And they have multiple. I mean, it's like a piece of metal with all kinds of slots in it, and they all radiate. So you're probably getting more gain out of that. But they're just small things because they're microwave or whatever. I think they're UHF too, 460 or something. Any other crazy ideas? Yeah?
Yeah, you just hit a screen from like a window screen.
Yeah. Give it a try. You'd be surprised. You might be the next hot item. You can start mass producing them and make a lot of money. Yeah.
Radiator in the second part, is that aluminum wire or what is that?
What is what?
The radiator, is that just aluminum?
This? Oh, this is just strap aluminum. You pick at the hardware store. Yeah, just aluminum. What John recommends is getting a smaller tubing, cut them in those 3 sections, and pound the ends flat. Drill holes in them, and that's where your joints would be, but they're round, small, like maybe 1/2-inch tubing or something. That's what he shows on his, but I thought this was a cheaper route to go, and I got a little bit of it, and I've used it for a lot of different things. Bent it around here for probably 1/2-inch by maybe 1/16 inch thick. You see these straps at the hardware store. Yeah. But I've got it locked down. I don't need to move it anymore. My SWR is as low as it can go. And this thing, I've had many contacts. I've recorded them. They're on my YouTube channel. Guys can't believe that's aluminum foil tape. Man, you're banging in here. Good strong signal. And I was just running, I think it did run 100 watts on this one, no problem. Yeah, George.
Question on the bonding of connectors for outdoor use. I mean, I guess you're just using crimp as much as you can, and then you spray clear lacquer or something over it?
You could. I don't think this would probably last a whole long time out in the sun, the elements.
That's more portable, you don't leave it.
Yeah, no. In fact, the first one I made, I think that was my 3-foot one. I was in my shack, and I've got a metal roof in my house. I did a whisper right there, and I was getting signals all over the place coming in from around the world. And I think it's 50 watts I was running. So not even outside. We're going to have one of these at field day?
Are you coming to field day?
I could bring it in field day. Yeah. I'll be glad. If the weather's nice, I'll be glad to. Yeah.
Okay, you said it's not right. If you use a clear coat, would that affect the reception?
I don't think so.
The adhesive
No.
doesn't affect it, I wouldn't think clear coat.
Huh?
If adhesive doesn't affect it,
I wouldn't think so. Shouldn't. I mean, even if part of it gets nicked up or scratched, the rest of it's just fine and it all just connects together. So it's like, it's pretty durable. Yeah. So if anybody wants to bring their radios up and give this a try, that's a B&C. So if you've got adapters on your, feel free to see if you can hit some of the repeaters here.
This is just the RF meter.
Like a signal strength.
Shows the power coming in. I can use it from the.
Well, that's actually kind of neat.